There's Brad.
And we're now live as well. And
2 minutes. I have 6 o'clock. And that means I can call the meeting to order. Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. In response to COVID-19, we continue to hold council meetings electronically. Members of the public are invited to participate in this meeting of council by accessing the meeting, which will be live streamed on our Middlesex Centre YouTube channel. We have public meetings for planning items that'll begin following our staff reports in the regular agenda. And just before we move to our first agenda item, I do want to take a quick moment to recognize one of our staff again. We got a notification from the Ministry of the Solicitor General, specifically the Office of the Fire Marshal and Emergency Management, that our Chief Colin Toth, is being appointed. Well, I'll just read the letter of appointment. It says, pursuant to Section 7 of the Fire Protection and Prevention Act, 1997, Michael Bouchard, who's the Operation Manager in Field Advisory Services, appoints Fire Chief Colin Toth of the Middlesex Centre Fire Service as Fire Coordinator for the County of Middlesex, effective May 10th, 2021. This is great news, and we're very proud of the accomplishments of our team. Congratulations to you, Chief, and I wish you well as you take on another role. So well done. Moving on now, updates to the agenda. Item 8.1, which is the consent application and an application for zoning bylaw amendment with respect to 10723 Gold Creek Drive, has been removed from the agenda and will be considered at a future meeting at the request of the planner and the applicant. Item 8.8, being an application for zoning bylaw amendment, which is filed by Zliga Priamo on behalf of Omni Healthcare, which is County Terrace, and Omni Healthcare CT GPCO Limited, has been revised by the report author to reflect an updated recommendation, noting that this item is to be received for information. So I just want to make sure that everyone understands those two items. And I note also that there are no additions to the council meeting agenda aside from those disclosures I've just made. I'm going to ask members of council now, is there anyone who needs to disclose pecuniary interest? Okay, and I see that there are none, and we can move on now to our delegations, presentations, and petitions, and we are going to be considering Lewis Drain Municipal, the Lewington Municipal Drain Information and Engineers Report. I understand Mike DeVos is on the line, and he will be presenting this report as soon as we have him jump into our meeting here. There he is.
Hello.
Hello. How are you, Mike?
I'm good.
Good. Anytime you're ready, the Lewington Drain Report is on the agenda for you to speak to.
Okay. Sure. This report was prepared in accordance with sections 4 and 78 of the Drainage Act, with the majority of the work being under 78. There is an existing Lewington drain that serves most of the watershed, with the exception of a petition to extend branch A through the North Smith property. There's 2 Smith properties in lot 6, one the south half and one the north half. And there was a private tile there currently that was asked to be replaced as part of the municipal drain. But the remaining portions, which consist of a branch A, B, and C, were constructed in 1957 as a tile drain. They are no longer servicing the properties adequately from a depth perspective and a capacity perspective, and the landowners requested that we replace that particular drain with a new drain with an improvement for capacity mostly. There are 2 pipeline crossings on this drain which pose challenges to get across. There's multiple Enbridge lines that run through a right-of-way in the south half of the concession, so our branch A pipe has to cross it. The outlet is in the Risdon drain in the east part of lot 6. It crosses the pipeline, heads over to lot 7, and then branch C comes back and crosses it again at the top end of branch C, with in that case with a smaller pipe. We did have submission to the pipeline and some back and forth on requirements, but we were able to get an agreement with them as to what would be required. We do require a twin pipe system on branch A from the crossing upstream, because the drain needs to be a bit flatter in grade upstream of the pipeline, so that requires us to use 2 pipes side by side, which is an increased cost. So there is a special assessment for that particular component, as well as we have to use special pipes to cross their pipelines. So there's 2 different specials, one for pipe size and one for material as we cross the pipelines. But the remainder of the drain is just replacement with farm tile, with new bigger and deeper farm tile. And we are adding some catch basins and replacing existing catch basins as well in certain areas. And at that point, I think I'd stop and open up to questions.
Okay, thank you. I'll look to council then. Are there any questions from Councillor Arts? Go ahead.
Through your Madam Mayor, to Mike, when you were doing the depths for the Enbridge pipelines, did Enbridge look after the cost of doing that, or is that going on at the cost of the drain?
Yeah, we had to physically conduct the investigations. We had to expose all of the lines where we were crossing them, and we've had to deal with them directly through contact and spending time to do it. That cost has been covered as part of the report, but there are special assessments in the report against Enbridge. So there is one special, I think, in the range of 10,000, and another one in the range of 40,000 for the increase in cost due to their pipeline existing, the pipelines existing. So it is being charged back to them.
So would that be that 900, there's a $975 charge on branch A and branch C for exposing and locating utilities and drains, so that would be in that figure? Thank you.
Is there anyone else? I see no hands. I'm going to ask, yes, Ron Smith, a member of the public, if he would like to ask questions or make comments. Here he is. Hello, Mr. Smith.
Yes, hello. I wasn't sure I was connected or not, but
You are
yes,
connected, and the floor is yours if you'd like to comment or ask questions.
I have no real concerns, except disappointed that the existing drain that is already working, why we need to completely destroy it and replace one with capacity instead of approaching it with the increase the capacity of what's already there.
Mike, would you care to respond or comment?
Yes, we did have discussions at the beginning of the project. When you consider the age of the pipe and the value in terms of the decrease in pipe size and the cost savings that are required, it didn't seem to make a lot of sense from both our perspective and the other landowners' perspective to do that. It is an alternative if you want to try and save that pipe and utilize it as part of the capacity, but it was something that was reviewed and decided upon at the beginning of the project that it wasn't worth that. Especially if we do keep the old one, it's going to continually get older and require more maintenance as it gets older.
Thank you.
Okay, no more questions then?
No more questions.
All righty then. We also have Mr. Foster, Rob Foster, who would like to speak to the report as well. There he is.
Prompt for Rob.
I see nothing yet.
He's on screen. He just hasn't turned his video on. Can you ask?
Oh, okay. Oh, there it goes. He is unmuted. Hello, Rob.
Just a few difficulties here.
That's
No,
okay.
I have no comments or questions this time. It's I'm fully prepared to get it done and go ahead. So
Well,
whatever the fastest way possible is from now on, go do it.
Okay, then thank you for your input.
Thank you.
Last call then. Is there any councillor that wishes to clarify anything else? Seeing none, then we have a motion before us that Council for the Municipality of Middlesex Centre receives the Lewington Drain Report from Mike DeVos of Spreed Associates dated April 12th, 2021, and authorizes that the project proceed, and that the Court of Revision will meet on June 23rd, 2021, and further that Councillor Heffernan, Councillor Shipley, and Deputy Mayor Brennan be appointed to sit as members of the Court of Revision, with Deputy Mayor Brennan being the chair. If I could have a mover, please, and a seconder. Councillor Cates and Deputy Mayor Brennan. Is anyone opposed? Seeing none, that is carried. Thank you very much, Mike. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you and good night.
Good night. Moving to item 5, the minutes of the May 12th, 2021 council meeting. The motion before us is that the minutes of the Middlesex Centre Council meeting held on the 12th of May, 2021 be adopted as printed. If I could have a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Shipley and Councillor Heffernan. Is anyone opposed? And that is carried. Thank you. Moving on to the consent agenda, there are 5 items there. I should ask, does anyone have anything they'd like to ask about, comment on, highlight? I don't see any hands. The motion before us is then that the items 6.1 through 6.5 listed under the heading of consent agenda for May 26, 2021 be adopted as recommended. If I could have a mover, please, then a seconder. Councillor Scott and Councillor Cates, any opposed? Okay, I don't see any. We can move on now to staff reports. Item 7.1, I'll ask Tiffany Farrell, Director of Corporate Services, please, to present the report. Hi there.
So through you, Mayor DeVete, with respect to CPS 26-2021, the Reserve and Reserve Fund policy, this report is specifically to create a new reserve fund. So we are looking at creating a legal reserve fund based on every year we budget for additional legal costs, things that we can't really anticipate. One of these examples would be the integrity commissioner costs. This can happen. It has not happened recently at the municipality, nor is it something that we see as a large concern, but it is out of our control. And so it's something that we continuously budget for. However, with the surplus that we've identified for 2020, we would like to set up a legal reserve fund so that we stop budgeting annually for these amounts that normally would go into our surplus because we're not utilizing it. And if they do occur, then we would use the legal reserve fund. That would be set up this year. The other is, the other thing that we're looking at doing is changing the name of the Cost Stabilization Reserve Fund to the Building Department Reserve Fund. This is something that's come up through budget engagement as well as through members of council, and including myself. This reserve fund was named by a consultant that was doing a study for the building department. The name people get very confused with, so we are looking at just cleaning that up and having it to be a little bit more obvious of what that reserve fund is for. And that would be what we are looking at in this report. And at this point, is there any questions from council?
Thank you for that. I'll start with Councillor Shipley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through the mayor to Tiffany, just a quick question, Tiffany. You said we did budget this before, so into the legal reserve. Where was it placed in the operational budget then?
Yeah, so through you, Mayor DeVete, yes, every year we budget, and that would be specifically in the general government budget under legal operating costs, and it's an amount every year just in case it's used. So this would make more sense because we actually haven't used it.
Thank you.
Councillor Heffernan and then Councillor Arts.
Thanks. Through the mayor to Tiffany. Just a little bit more clarification. The Cost Stabilization Reserve Fund that's changed to the Building Department. So is this for the actual building department? Like why would they have reserves? Is this, yeah.
So through you, Mayor DeVete. So the building department is required to be self-sustaining. And so each year, the amounts that they charge for the permits should be covering off their expenses. In addition, there is an amount that goes towards administration to cover the cost of just the overall administration of being in this building and utilities and the support of other staff. And on top of that, they are collecting, as part of the rate study that was done back in 2015, it's a good idea in case of a recession or a downturn in the economy or the building department and the building boom that Middlesex Center is experiencing, that we have a reserve fund in order to cover those unexpected costs if we weren't pulling in the revenue that we have in the past. So that's what the reserve fund would be for. The money that the building department earns with respect to permits stays with the building department. We do not use it for any general costs throughout the municipality. So that is similar to water. It's required to be self-sustaining. And that's why this was created back in 2015. So it was just created before my time here at Middlesex Center. The name, the cost stabilization, is to stabilize costs within that building department and that division. So it does make sense. However, it doesn't appeal to the masses in the sense that people don't really see that it's for the building department when in actual reality it is.
Okay, thanks, Tiffany.
Okay, Councillor Arts, you had a question as well. Rosen? Just see if his screen comes back. Or we'll just give it a moment, maybe. I think Councillor Arts has technical difficulties.
Looks like his screen is froze.
Yes. Yes, we've lost him. Well, maybe I can come back and ask him. Is that all right?
Yes, absolutely.
The clerk says I can come back, so that's what we'll do. We'll go on to the next report, and hopefully he'll come back on, and then I'll loop back and ask for any questions that he needs clarified. I'll take the motion then, and then we'll come back to this item if we'll try to finish this up, okay? So we're moving to 7.2 now, which is again our Director of Corporate Services, Tiffany, and she's going to present the year-end surplus and reserve fund information for us. Thank you.
So through you, Mayor DeVete. So in front of you is the preliminary year-end surplus and reserve fund transfers for 2020. So the municipal financial audit is completing this week. We should have financial statements on the agenda for June 23rd council meeting. So these numbers are preliminary and they could change slightly. They have been reviewed by our auditor at this point. And if there are any changes, they would be balanced against the tax rate stabilization reserve fund. So the beginning of the recommendation is showing what reserve funds the municipality will be funding based on the surplus generated in 2020. So as council is aware, staff had brought forward many cost containment ideas as the pandemic hit back in March of 2020. And those cost savings containment strategies, as well as some of those follow-up costs, turned out to be very large, and in the end ended up with a sizable surplus for the municipality in the 2020 year. In the chart in the report, it does break down by department where the surplus was generated, what departments are responsible, and why. So you'll notice that the biggest contributor is salaries and wages. There was some layoffs here at the municipality due to COVID. There was a lot less overtime than we'd experienced in the past. There was strict protocols with respect to overtime. There was also a lot of salary gapping. And so what that means is even if we had an employee leave, we didn't fill it right away. We tried to our internal capacities to cover that off because we didn't know what the pandemic was going to bring. So back in October, we brought forward to council an update on our cost containment strategies and where we were at. So this is a lot larger even than we were predicting at that time. At this time, we are looking at a surplus of a little bit over $2.6 million. In that, you'll see fuel, hydro, utilities. These are all big contributing factors along with wages, as well as a lot of those projects that we put off in order for cost containment that you're going to see more in 2021. So overall, it does address the new legal reserve fund that we're looking at creating based on earlier. And at this point, I'll kind of open it up to questions to see if there is anyone that has a question on the surplus.
Thank you for that report. I'll look to council then. Are there questions? Councillor Shipley?
Through the mayor to Tiffany. Tiffany, what would be an average amount going back into that? Like $1 million? Like we are high, obviously, but what would be the average yearly amount?
So through you, Mayor DeVete, what I would like to see as a municipal treasurer in a normal year would be $300,000 or less. I think that we could be budgeting, and that's where we're creating all these new reserve funds. So in the past, it was a few years ago that we created that winter maintenance reserve fund. Why we created that was that we used to budget about 20% for overtime for our outside workers, especially during snow plowing season. But we were finding that it wasn't being utilized. So we created this reserve fund based on a surplus from that year so that we don't have to budget and raise that every year. So each year we're kind of making improvements, and that's where they say that legal reserve fund would come into play. I would like to see the reserve under 300,000. We have seen higher reserve funds every year. However, you have to keep in mind, we have also seen a lot of government grants that have come through that we were not anticipating. So last year in the 2020 budget, there was the OCIF. So we did not budget it for the 2020 year because the announcement didn't come out till February of 2020. And as you know, we passed our budget in the year before. And so OCIF hit us the year before. That modernization money that we got from the government was about $684,000. Once again, not budgeted. It goes to the surplus. These are things that I would see outside of that 300,000. We can't control it. They're all really good news stories. If we can get money from the government or any kind of donation, the municipality is more than happy to accept those and be over. But I would like to get it under around 300. In a pandemic, this was a little bit of a unique situation. This is higher than we had even anticipated. I was thinking we'd be at the 1.6 million, to be honest. But as we started seeing even December, when we shut down the facilities again, that was significant for our hydro because you're talking in the winter months. In the summer months, We saved a significant amount when the splash pads weren't open for like the water and wastewater or water cart charge. We don't charge ourselves wastewater for splash pads, but that stuff really contributed to this. The staffing cost was higher than the savings that we had in staffing. A lot of that came down to that salary gapping and some of the layoffs, and we were able to cover off a lot of our costs. Part of that as well is that COVID funding that we did get. We are utilizing it though. So there were direct costs to COVID as well as those lost revenues. And so that's going to be more of an allocation internally in order to do our reporting. Because that funding from COVID will help. However, when we put in a lot of those cost containment strategies, we didn't know if we'd have any funding. So it is substantial. I am looking at, for 2021, we did plan for a lot of the, like say, the lost revenues for community centers, because we knew that they'd continue to be closed. And we do have other cost containment in mind, should we have to continue as the pandemic has continued. But I am looking at, we would have a smaller reserve or smaller surplus in the future.
Okay, thank you very much.
Other questions, comments? Well, I can't really imagine budgeting in a pandemic and trying to deal with all the uncertainty. I think there's been a lot of extra work for staff on this, and this is a great, it's good to have this and have these reserves topped up, and it'll try and smooth things out for us as we go forward. So thank you for that report. And if there are no questions, then the motion before us is to approve a number of transfers, that is to various departments, various amounts. So I'll just highlight what those are. For Buildings and Facilities Reserve Fund, the amount of $875,669.32. For the General Vehicles and Equipment Reserve Fund, the amount of $319,157.03 be approved. That for Road Capital Reserve Fund, $1,155,761.39. And for Fire Vehicles and Equipment, $219,412.26. And for the Legal Reserve Fund, $100,000. All of those be approved. And further that, the remaining portion of the 2020 surplus be allocated to the Tax Rate Stabilization Reserve Fund. If I could have a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Heffernan and Deputy Mayor Brennan, any opposed? That is carried. Thank you. I'll ask now that our Director of Engineering, Rob Cascaden, report number 7.3. There he is. Yeah.
So, good evening. So, through Mayor DeVitt, I'd like to provide you with a quick overview of this report for the budget overage for the Denfield storage shed. Unfortunately, this is a bit of a different story from the last report. This is one where we budgeted $100,000 for the construction of a storage shed for the Denfield site. And going into budgeting in 2020 for the 2021 year, we were comfortable with the $100,000 figure and had intended to build a shed that would essentially meet that budget, knowing that we would potentially end up with something smaller than we had hoped for. In the end, we had identified that a 60 by 60 storage shed would meet our immediate needs, and then we would potentially look at a future expansion in a year down the road. So with COVID that has been happening over the last year, we've seen substantial price increases in materials. So in early 2021, because this is a facility budget item, community services and PWE staff were working together to get quotes for different options for the storage shed, looking at different materials and different construction methods. And we were finding that many of those were well over the intended budget of $100,000. In the end, we had narrowed it down to two contractors that were approaching the budget price, and those were Olympia Steel Buildings and Middlesex Concrete Forming. So in the report, you can see the two quotes that were provided from them, at one just on $122,000 and one just over $117,000. The difference was actually a little bit more than that initially, because the Middlesex Concrete Forming quote is a secondary quote, which was about I think it was about a couple of weeks or a month after the original quote. And so prices had actually went up by about $10,000. So if we were to go back to Olympia Steel building, we know that their quote of 121,000 or 122,000 would also have increased, probably proportionally. So with that being said, we're looking at awarding this or hoping to award this to Middlesex Concrete Forming. And we would like to increase the budget by $37,500 to both cover the known overage and to allow for some contingency in that if there is future cost increases. Unfortunately, we have not been able to finalize the price with Middlesex Concrete Forming until we have this budget approval. Once we have this, then we can go back to them and finalize that price and lock it in, and hopefully it will be very similar to the last quote provided. So this time I'm just looking for council approval for the budget increase so we can proceed with the storage shed. And I'm happy to take any questions.
I was muted. I'm sorry. Thank you for the report, Rob. I'll turn to council now. Any questions with respect to the quotes or work proposed? I don't see anything. So the motion before us is that council receive report PWE 15-2021 capital budget overage for Denfield storage shed for information, and that council approve the overage to capital budget 216302-7005 as contained in this report in the amount of $37,500 for a total capital budget of $137,500, and further that the mayor and the clerk be authorized to execute the necessary documents to enter into an agreement with Middlesex Concrete Forming for the construction of a 60 by 60 by 16 storage shed. Could I have a mover, please, and a seconder? Councillor Scott and Deputy Mayor Brennan. Is there anyone who's opposed? And that is carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have Councillor Arts back on the screen. We were on item 7.1, and Councillor Arts, you were going to ask a question. We decided to stop where we were and give you the opportunity to ask the question, and we'll call the vote after you've had your answers.
Through your mayor to Tiffany, maybe it was already discussed. I was just wondering, we're putting $100,000 into that legal fund. What's we don't draw on it, what's your target or max?
Yeah, so through you to Mayor DeVete, that would be the target, would be about 100,000. So I'd like to keep that in there. If we start drawing on it, then we would look at topping that up. We will still have legal operating costs as part of the budget, but it'd be significantly lower. So we would be looking at actual predictable legal costs that we know are coming down the line based on the information that we have. And we also, there is a small amount of a contingency for things that do come up, but it wouldn't be so as substantial as it has been in the past. And so the target would be 100,000, and we would get some more information on that as I would say over the next 5 years. So if we do end up drawing on it every year, obviously we'll need to increase that, but that's not what we see happening.
Thank you.
Is that everything for everyone on this item then? I don't see any additional hands, so I will call a vote on the motion that council approve, amending the reserve and reserve fund policy to include additional reserve funds called the legal reserve fund, and that council approve the name change for the cost stabilization reserve fund to building department reserve fund. And further, that the Director of Corporate Services be directed to amend the existing policy effective May 27th, 2021. Could I have a mover, please, and a seconder? Councillor Cates and Councillor Scott. Is anyone opposed? Seeing none, that is carried then. Thank you. Now we have public meetings, but they don't begin at 7 until 7 o'clock.
We are okay to begin.
We are okay to begin? Oh, okay, sorry. Oh, okay. In that case, I'm going to call for a motion to move into planning meeting. And it is that council adjourn its regular meeting at 6:32 to move into public planning meetings pursuant to the Planning Act 1990 as amended to consider the planning applications listed on the May 26, 2021 agenda. So just to start things off, Members of the public are participating virtually in this evening's public meetings, and they previously provided notification to the municipal clerk in advance of the meeting tonight. If anyone wishes to receive further notification on any of the applications being considered tonight, I ask that you please email planning@middlesexcenter.on.ca requesting further notification. Please be advised that comments expressed and written material presented are a matter of public record. If you have any questions on any of the applications being heard this evening, we ask that you direct those to the appropriate planner on file. Those who have requested to speak will be given a maximum of 10 minutes to address council and provide comments on the applications. In keeping with our procedural bylaw and our R-zone policy, I would remind all of our meeting participants to use respectful language and uphold values of cooperation, trust, and openness. Now, the order of proceedings is the same for each application, and the order of procedure shall be as follows. First, the chair, that is myself, will ask the planner to explain the purpose of the application and hearing and to present the staff report. The municipal clerk will provide additional comments received from circulated agencies and the public not included in the planning report. The applicant and or their agent has the opportunity to speak to their application, and then the public will be asked for their comments and questions. Please ensure that you state your name and address so that comments can be reflected in the minutes. And then the committee will then ask questions of the applicant and or staff, and then we'll consider motions regarding those applications. So the first item up was 8.1, and as I noted earlier, that has been stricken from the agenda tonight. So we're moving to 8.2, which is the consent application for zoning bylaw amendment for 11697 Headley Drive. And I'll start with Dan Planner, our planner, Dan, to give an overview of the report. Hello, Dan.
Through the chair, thank you, Mayor DeVete and members of council. The purpose and effect of consent application B3/2021 would be to sever a surplus farm residence on a lot with a frontage of approximately 8 meters on Headley Drive, an area of approximately 0.93 acres from a remnant farm parcel with a proposed frontage of 381 meters on Headley Drive in an area of approximately 98.2 acres. So the effect of this proposal would be to dispose of a residence deemed surplus to a farm operation, which is the result of a consolidation. So as a note to council, while there is an interim control bylaw that's in effect to pause the applications of this nature, this application being heard tonight was submitted in advance of council passing that interim control bylaw. So as such, council can still make a decision on this application in compliance with the conditions outlined within that bylaw. Everyone can see the map there. The applicant, just as a note, has also submitted a concurrent zoning bylaw amendment application where the purpose and effect of the zoning bylaw amendment would be to rezone the severed lands from an agricultural A1 zone to a surplus residence or SR zone in order to recognize the residential nature of the property. Also, the retained lands are proposed to be rezoned from an agricultural A1 zone to an agricultural no residence or A3 zone to remove the future ability to construct additional residential properties on the lands. The subject property as a whole is approximately 99 acres and is a farm parcel that's located on the east side of Clark Road on the south side of Headley Drive, west of the intersection at Headley and New Ontario Road. The subject property currently contains a single detached dwelling and agricultural lands that are in crop production. The residential portion of the property or lands are serviced by private services in the form of septic and well, and the property is surrounded by agricultural lands and crop production. The lands are designated agricultural according to the county official plan and are zoned agricultural A1 zone in the municipal comprehensive zoning bylaw. They're also designated agricultural in the municipality's official. So in circulation of the application, planning did not receive any comments from the public pertaining to the proposed severance. Also, no additional comments or concerns were raised from external agencies, and any internal department comments that were noted in the planning report have been incorporated into the recommended conditions of consent. Generally, provincial policy, the county official plan, as well as the local official plan, do permit surplus farm dwelling severances as long as the municipality is satisfied that a farm consolidation is occurring, that the lands contain either municipal or private servicing, that the dwelling is habitable and constructed prior to 1999, and that no new residence is permitted to be established on the the remnant farm parcel, as well that access to the lands is maintained separate. So as identified in the report, planning staff are satisfied that the criteria of the proposed severance of a surplus farm residence on the lands have been met or are capable of being appropriately addressed through conditions of consent. So based on the above, staff are recommending that consent file B3/2021 be approved subject to the conditions as outlined in the planning report. Additionally, staff recommend that the proposed zoning bylaw amendment, which is ZBA 5/2021, be approved and that the implementing bylaw be forwarded to council once staff and the municipality have approved a deposited reference plan. Thank you, and I'm certainly available to answer any questions.
Thank you for that report, Dan. Is Mr. Direct here? Okay. I'm going to ask the applicant, Rien Direct, if he would like to make any comments at this point, or is it Anya speaking?
They labeled themselves as Anya.
Yeah. You are muted.
Yes.
Okay.
There. Good evening.
Good evening. Thanks for the explanation. There are no major comments. My son is renting the house. He has a little family, and the house needs to be updated. He wants to do that himself. The surrounding farmland will be inherited by him when we pass on. So if we sever it off, he can go ahead with the house for his little family and do what he wants. That's all I want to ask and say. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you for your comments. No other members of the public have requested to participate, so I will ask, are there any questions from council? I don't see any hands. So I'm going to start with the legal verbiage. So consent application B3/2021 filed by Rien Direct in order to sever a residence surplus to a farm operation as a result of consolidation on a lot with a frontage of 8 meters on Headley Drive and an area of approximately 0.93 acres, and the retained frontage of approximately 1,252 feet on Headley Drive and an area of approximately 98.2 acres from a lot legally described as part lots 18 and 19 on the reference plan 33R14171 in the municipality of Middlesex Centre, County of Middlesex, and municipally known as 11697 Headley Drive be granted. There are 13 conditions which council has before them and that are on the agenda. So that is part of the motion. And further that, the reasons for granting this consent application include that the proposal is consistent with the provincial policy statement. It conforms to the County of Middlesex official plan, as well as the Middlesex Centre official plan. And subject to the conditions, the proposal would comply with the Middlesex Centre comprehensive zoning bylaw. With respect to the rezoning recommendation, it is that application for zoning bylaw amendment ZBA 5/2021 filed by Rien Direct for the lands legally described earlier in the municipality of Middlesex Centre, County of Middlesex, known as 11697 Headley Drive, to rezone the severed lands from agricultural A1 zone to the surplus residential SR zone, and the retained lands from the agricultural A1 zone to an agricultural no residence A3 zone be granted, and that the implementing bylaw be forwarded to council for consideration once a deposit reference plan has been provided to the satisfaction of the municipality. If I could have a mover and a seconder, please. Deputy Mayor Brennan and Councillor Heffernan. Is there anyone who's opposed? Seeing none, thank you for that. And our residents are gone, but everything is taken care of, and I'm sure they'll get the good news promptly. Okay, we can move now on to 8.3. Where's 8.3? There's 8.3, getting ahead of myself here. Okay, 8.3, which is consent application B6 2021 and B7 2021. And Dan is our planner again on this file. So if you'd like to do the report, go ahead, Dan.
Through the chair, thank you, Mayor DeVete. So the purpose of this application before council is with respect to two properties that are located, one at 22748 Richmond Street and the other at 22746 Richmond Street, which are requesting consent to establish a shared access easement. The effect is to realign the existing access to provide a more direct and separate driveway for each respective property. We can see the subject properties have a combined frontage of about 340 meters and a combined area of approximately 47 acres. Each contains a separate single detached dwelling as well as any associated accessory buildings. They are surrounded by agriculturally zoned lands on all sides. The lands are designated agricultural area in the county official plan, agricultural in the Middlesex Center's official plan, and zoned agricultural A1 zone in Middlesex Center's comprehensive zoning bylaw. I just want to note that the planning report did reference a village commercial designation for this particular property. That is incorrect. It is agricultural, just for clarification for everyone. So as seen in the attached reference plan, which we can see here to the planning report, both properties are currently subject to a shared access easement, which is listed on the reference plan as instrument number LT382133 on plan 33R 11750. It enters onto 22746 Richmond Street and then kind of heads what would that be, east, and then cuts across north to provide access to 22748 Richmond Street. The owners have come to an agreement to close the existing access easement that runs across the property, that being 22746, in favor of a more mutual driveway entrance between the property boundaries, which will then limit the spill, split onto each other individual property separately. So on this particular plan, this is represented as part 2 as well as part 3 on the draft reference plan, and attached to the planning report, just as a note to council as well, there is a zoomed in perspective of the part 2 and part 3 that kind of shows you where that access easement is and where it would be located between the two property lines. So the owner requires Ministry of Transportation approval, given that this is on a provincial highway, which is Highway 4, which MTO has identified the need to receive consent for easement to ensure that the mutual access onto Richmond Street would be maintained in perpetuity of the lands. A notice of the application was given in advance of today's meeting in accordance with the Planning Act, and we have not received any comments from the public. Staff have reviewed the proposal for the consent for a shared access easement and are satisfied that it does meet the intent of the provincial policy statement as well as the county official plan and local official plan. So as such, planning staff are recommending that the consent application to establish the shared access easement be approved. So thank you, and I'm certainly available to answer any questions on this one.
Thank you for that report. We have the applicant, Lamise Amwari, online or on the telephone line, and visually too, I think. And they've registered to speak to the application. There you are. Good evening.
Good evening. It's very interesting to hear what you guys do. I just, if everything's approved, it just means that we have to share a shorter driveway together. And then we can each have our own privacy, whereas the existing driveway is very long and it infringes on my neighbor's privacy. So that's why we're doing this.
Okay, thank you for that. We also have Jimmy Lee. No, we do not. He is registered but is not attending. Reginald, okay, so we have no one else registered to speak. So I will look now to council for questions of the planner or applicant. I don't see any hands. Okay, if there are no questions from council, then the motion before us is that consent applications B06 and B07 2021 filed by Paula Adams and Paula Downs on behalf of Lamise, Amuri Dalal, Sami Dalal, and Holly Barnes in order to establish a shared access easement for a common driveway to service both 22746 and 22748 Richmond Street, with the easement being located on two properties that are legally described on the reference plans in the municipality of Middlesex Centre and that in the county of Middlesex, and that these be granted. And there are 6 conditions that need to be met as listed in your agenda, and that the council, the consent B07 be subject to another 6 conditions, again on your agenda. And further, that the reasons for granting this consent application, that is number 7, 2021 and 6, 2021, be granted for the reasons that it is consistent with the provincial policy statement, conforms to the county and the Middlesex official plans. The proposal complies with the Middlesex Centre Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw, and the request report represents appropriate development on the subject property. If I could have a mover and a seconder for that, please. Councillor Heffernan and Councillor Scott. Is anyone opposed? Seeing none, then we can move to 8.4, and I think we've lost Councillor Arts again. Bad night tonight for his internet, looks like. So this is the consent application with respect to 115 Huron Ave in Kamoka. Dan is going to again present the overview of the planning report, please.
Through the chair, thanks to Mayor DeVitt and members of council. The purpose of this consent application is with respect to a consent to sever an existing residential lot to establish a new residential lot with a frontage of approximately 15.8 meters on Delaware Street Central and an area of approximately 580 square meters, while the remnant lot would have a frontage of approximately 36.5 meters on Huron Avenue and an area of approximately 1,427 square meters, with the effect of the proposal being to create a new residential lot to establish a single detached residence.
Oh dear.
So the subject property here is approximately 2,007 square meters. And it's a residential parcel that's located in the Kamoka-Kilworth settlement area on the northeast corner of Delaware Street Central and Huron Avenue, and is legally described as lots 17 to 18, Block O, Plan 76 in the County of Middlesex, Municipality of Middlesex Centre, and is municipally known as 115 Huron Avenue. The property contains a single detached dwelling as well as a detached garage. It is on full municipal services from Huron Avenue and does gain access from Delaware Street Central. The lands are designated residential in the local official plan and zoned urban residential first density exception UR1-4 zone in Middlesex Centre zoning bylaw. The lands are surrounded on all sides by low-density residential development in the format of single detached dwellings. The provincial policy statement, county official plan, and the local official plan generally do permit lot creation and promote infill and intensification to achieve growth objectives within existing settlement boundaries where it's deemed appropriate. The subject lands are municipally serviced and do abut an existing municipal road allowance. However, it is noted that services would need to be extended to service a new severed lot, which has been included as a condition of the consent. Additionally, the proposed lot is able to meet the minimum zoning bylaw standards, those being a 15-meter frontage, as well as a minimum area of 450 square meters. This type of development generally is the preferred form, as it does promote a more efficient use of existing land and infrastructure, while also reducing the need for an expansion of settlement boundary areas. Given the above, planning staff are recommending that the subject application be approved, subject to the conditions as outlined in the report. Notice of the application has been circulated to agencies as well as property owners in accordance with the Planning Act requirements. Planning received 2 comments regarding the proposal. One was in support of the severance, and the second expressed concerns regarding any future development being required to meet provisions of the zoning bylaw. So I did note to council and the public that any new development of the property would be required to meet the existing standard or zoning provisions of the UR1-4 zone. And I did note after subsequently drafting the report as well as the conditions, I did receive further correspondence from CN Rail regarding their interests in the area. They have requested the inclusion of a condition, which I believe James has now added into the agenda, and it's with relation to a warning clause being added into the development agreement that would warn any future renter or owner of this particular parcel of land of the potential for noise intrusion in the future. So with that said, as I did note, we are recommending approval of the particular application with respect to the severance and subject to all the conditions as outlined in the planning report. So thank you, and I'm certainly available to answer any questions.
Thank you for that presentation. Keith is here. Very good. Oh, there you are. Mr. Keith Brown is the applicant and has registered to speak. I see his name. I think we'll be hearing from him in a moment.
Thank you, Dan, for your help and Thank you, Dan, for your help and presentation. Madam Mayor and council members, we are Keith and Dorothy Brown. We have lived in Komoka for 54 years at this residence. We'd like to sever this lot at this time so our son can build a mobility friendly home. Our son David and his family, David has Parkinson's and has a mobile issue. Plus, would like to have them close by so we can help them if they need us. Thank you, members of council, for your consideration.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Brown, for your comments and input. We also have a member of the public, Mr. Paul Houghton, who is also registered to speak to this application. And he's coming online now too.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, the floor is yours, Paul.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor DeVete. I definitely do not object to this severance, just to be clear. So this is not an objection, it's more of a comment. But I do wish to comment on what may happen after the severance is approved with respect to potential variance requests. I've seen on numerous occasions the approval to create a lot is followed later by a variance request to build bigger and taller homes than what the bylaws allow. In the past, these variances have close, if not 100% approval. This is great for the builder of the home on the severed lot, but not for the abutting landowners who rely on the zoning bylaws to protect the enjoyment of the property values, and their street profile. I would ask that a policy be put in place stating that any development on severed lots comply with all existing zoning bylaws with respect to land use, height, and setbacks. That would be a special instance for severed lots only. The public expects and relies on council and staff to be committed to upholding existing bylaws on severances to protect the interests of abutting landowners. Thank you, and that is all I have to say.
Thank you for your input. Now, I think that's everybody from the public. I'll look to council then. Are there any questions of the applicant or of the planner? I don't see any hands. Okay. In that case, the motion is before us, and it is that consent applications B08 2021 filed by Albert Keith Brown and Dorothy Ann Brown in order to sever a residential lot with a frontage of approximately 15.8 meters on Delaware Street within an area approximately of 6,220 square feet, and the retained parcel frontage of approximately 36.58 meters on Huron Ave with an area of approximately 15,360 square feet on a property that is described as lot 17 and 18 on Plan 76 in County of Middlesex, Municipality of Middlesex Center, and municipally known as 115 Huron Ave be granted. As the planner noted, there are 16 conditions, and specifically, I note that condition 8 refers to the CNR wording about railways. And further that, the reasons for granting this consent application, B08 2021, include that the proposal is consistent with the provincial policy statement, proposal conforms to the County of Middlesex official plan and the Middlesex Center official plan. Well, that is both county and municipal, and the proposal complies with the Middlesex Center Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw. Do I have a mover and a seconder for this, please? Councillor Cates and Councillor Heffernan. Is anyone opposed? Seeing none, that motion is then carried. Okay, and now we can move to consent application B11 6237 Carriage Road. And Dan is again the planner on this file.
Through the chair, thanks, Mayor DeVitt and members of council. So the purpose and effective consent application B11/2021 would be to sever a surplus farm residence on a lot with a frontage of approximately 10.7 meters along Carriage Road in an area of approximately 0.67 of a hectare or 1.67 acres. From a farm holding with a lot area of approximately 40.4 hectares. The effect would be to dispose of a residence deemed surplus to a farm operation as a result of farm consolidation. As a note to council, these particular lands previously did receive provisional consent approval of a surplus dwelling through application B29/19, which was heard by council on November 27th, 2019. The applicant, however, was unable to clear the conditions within the 1-year time frame, and the consent did lapse. As a result, they have reapplied to amend the time frame to complete the conditions. Legal counsel has been notified, and staff that the resubmission, if a provisionally approved consent to amend conditions is acceptable under the current interim control bylaw, and did agree that it is, as this does not represent a new application on a different property. So with that said, as a note also to council, the applicant already has previously received approval on the rezoning of the lands, both the severed and the remnant lands, from the agricultural A1 zone to a surplus residential zone, as well as agricultural no residence A3 zone respectively. The subject property as a whole is approximately 100 acre farm parcel that is located on the west side of Carriage Road and south of Littlewood Drive. The subject property currently contains a single detached dwelling, of which one was previously removed, and as well as associated accessory buildings. The property is serviced by private services in the form of a septic system as well as a well. The property is surrounded by agricultural uses and has access onto municipally owned roadway. The lands are designated agricultural according to the municipality's official plan, and as previously noted, partially zoned surplus residence zone for the proposed severed lands, and agricultural no residence A3 zone for the remnant lands according to the Middlesex Center Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw. So in circulation of the application, we did not receive any comments from the public pertaining to this particular proposal. And no additional comments or concerns were raised from external agencies as well as internal departments. And any comments that were made have been included as conditions of consent. So generally, provincial policy as well as the county official plan and local official plan do permit surplus farm dwelling severances, as long as the municipality is satisfied that a farm consolidation is occurring. The lands contain either municipal or private services. The dwelling is habitable and constructed prior to 1999. No new residence is permitted to be established, and access to the lands is maintained. Given the above and as identified in the report, planning staff is satisfied that the criteria of the proposed severance on the lands have been met or can be appropriately addressed through the conditions of consent. So based on the above, staff is recommending that consent file B11-2021 be approved, subject to the conditions as outlined in the planning report. So thank you, and I'm certainly available to answer your questions.
Thank you for that presentation, Dan. Paul and Mary Wolfs are the applicants and have registered to speak. I'll look to the applicants if they're to make any comment or add any information.
Yes, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, good evening. Go ahead, Mr. Wolf.
Good evening. Okay, yeah, I'd just like to thank you for redoing this for me, Dan, but just have one comment to make. I did manage to get everything put in before the actual date, but it was only like 2 days before, so I guess that wasn't enough time. Just a comment on the application. Maybe we should have a specific number of days that it's required for everything to be in to get processed, I guess. That's my only comment, so.
Okay, thank you for that.
I do this all again, so it's like, yeah. Okay.
Okay, thank you for that input then. And there are no members of the public who've asked to participate, so I'll ask, are there questions from council on the report? Deputy Mayor Brennan.
To you, Madam Mayor, to Dan. Are we actually resevering this, or are we just giving them an extension on the conditions to get those completed in a timely manner, or do we have to actually redo the application?
Through the chair, so technically speaking, it's a reapplication of the previously approved provisional severance. So when properties get approval for severance, it's always provisional until all the conditions have been fulfilled. So in this case, they unfortunately weren't able to fulfill the conditions within that 1 year time frame as required by the Planning Act. So we would view this as a resubmission of the original application to extend the provisional consent by an additional 1 year.
And you stated, yeah, yes, please. You stated that you talked to legal and that even though we've got the moratorium in place, this application would be coming before us after the moratorium was put in place for reconsideration, but they're saying it's okay because it was previously passed?
Through the chair, yes, that's correct. It's not viewed as a new application, it's reviewed as a reapplication.
Okay, flip a coin, I guess, but okay, thank you.
Other questions? Okay, I don't see any. The motion before us is that consent application B11-2021 filed by Paul and Mary Wolfs on behalf of Wolfs Family Farms Incorporated in order to sever a surplus farm residence on a lot with a frontage of approximately 35.3 feet along Carriage Road and an area of approximately 1.67 acres from a farm holding with a lot area of approximately 100 acres with the legal description as noted in the document in the municipality of Middlesex Center be granted. The consent is subject to 14 conditions as outlined in the document. And further that, the reasons for granting the consent application B11-2021 include that the proposal is consistent with the provincial policy statement. The proposal conforms to both the County of Middlesex and the Middlesex Center official plans, and subject to the conditions, the proposal would comply with the Middlesex Center Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw. I'm looking for a mover or a seconder. and a seconder, pardon me. Councillor Scott and Councillor Cates. Is anyone opposed? Seeing none, that motion is carried then. Thank you, Dan. I think Marion is taking over from here. So we'll look to 8.6 now, which is an application for zoning bylaw amendment. I missed something.
Councillor Aerts looks like he just has a question. He's just rejoined us.
Oh, welcome back. Councillor Aerts, did you have a question?
Could you let me in?
Yes, you're in and we can see you again.
No, I mean in the office. My internet is down.
Oh, okay. The clerk has gone to get you the door open and get you in. I think that's called 3 tries per quarter, isn't it? Maybe, okay. I think I'll just ask Marion to continue with presenting everything. And so we're on 8.6, which is zoning bylaw amendment, official plan amendments and plan of subdivision for 21488 Highbury Avenue North, filed by Ballymote Developments. So Marion, I'll ask you to start with the presentation of the report, please.
Great. Thank you, Mayor Zavita and members of council. The municipality and the county received applications for a plan of subdivision, official plan amendment, and zoning bylaw amendment for the lands known as 21488 Highbury Avenue North in Ballymote. And I'll just bring up a location map for reference. Okay, so hopefully everyone can see it on their screens. The applicant is proposing a plan of subdivision to create 20 lots for single detached dwellings along Highbury Avenue North and Medway Road. As part of the application, an official plan amendment was also requested to permit the creation of 20 lots utilizing private on-site sanitary systems. In addition, the applicant has requested a zoning bylaw amendment for lot 20 specifically to rezone the lands from agricultural to hamlet residential for its density. So as you can see on the the location map, the lands are located on the south side of Medway Road and east side of Highbury Avenue North in Ballymote. The lands are approximately 87 acres in area and is actively farmed and contains a single detached dwelling. So the proposal before you is to create 5 lots along Medway Road and then 15 on Highbury Avenue North. Each lot is proposed on municipal water and private on-site sanitary services. And since the developments are to front directly onto county roads, shared entrances for every 2 lots are proposed. Lots 1 to 5 on Medway Road are proposed to have frontages of approximately 76 feet and lot areas of roughly 0.45 acres in area. Lots 6 to 16, which is just the northern portion of the lots on Highbury Avenue North, have a frontage of approximately 84 feet and total areas approximately 0.46 acres in area, with the exception of lot 16, which is just undersized at 0.44 acres. And then lots 17 to 20 have frontages of 83 feet and approximate areas of 0.45 acres, Further, the existing single detached dwelling that is on the lands will be retained on lot 18. So as a result of the applications, the remnant lands will be approximately 78 acres in area and will remain agricultural with access from Medway Road. The remnant lands also contain a significant woodland that is located on the northeast corner of the land. So as mentioned, the requested application is generally consistent with policies of the PPS, the county official plan, and the Middlesex Center official plan as it relates to directing growth to existing settlement areas. With regard to the official plan amendment request, the current OP policies permit limited development through infilling in hamlet areas. New development must be serviced by acceptable servicing standards, and where partial services are considered, supporting studies must address all servicing options and determine that development may proceed on partial servicing. However, major new developments such as the one proposed will require the provision of full municipal services. So since full municipal services is not planned for Ballymote in the near future, the municipality will need to consider if the proposed development on partial servicing is appropriate and to the satisfaction of the municipality. Additionally, the applicant proposes lot 20, which appears to be located outside of the settlement area boundary of Ballymote. However, the official plan interprets the designation boundaries as approximate and only absolute when they are bound by roads, railways, bodies of water, any other geographical features. Therefore, amendments to the schedule of the official plan will not be required to make minor adjustments to the approximate land use boundaries, provided that the general intent of the plan is maintained. With regard to the zoning bylaw request, again, this is only applicable to lot 20. The applicant is requesting that this lot be rezoned from agricultural to the Hamlet residential first density zone, and the proposed lot meets all the standards for that zone. Additionally, the zoning bylaw also identifies some regulated area located along Medway Road affecting lots 1 to 5, as well as the remnant farm parcel. And development within this area will need to be reviewed further by the Conservation Authority. So this application was circulated to area residents, agencies, and staff in accordance with the Planning Act. Staff did not receive any comments from area residents. However, we did receive a few phone calls related to the status of the existing dwelling, just general questions about the development and the maintenance of the existing tree lines. Municipal staff did not have any objections to the proposal. However, the building department requested that lot grading and servicing design be provided to ensure that there is no impact to the existing properties, as well as the remnant farm parcel. Additionally, the lots must be large enough to accommodate a sewage system and contingency area. Additionally, the Public Works and Engineering Department had some concerns with the lot sizing, but that will be addressed through the appropriate nitrate studies that have been submitted by the applicant. Additionally, the county engineer had not provided comments at the time of writing this report. However, during pre-consultation, they advised the applicant to limit direct access onto the county roads, to adhere to minimum setback requirements for residential buildings, and consider land for road widening purposes. And additionally, because of the regulated area along Medway Road, the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority was requested to review this application, and they did request additional time to review this comprehensively. Specifically, their concerns relate to those lots 1 to 5, where the Ballymote, East Drain, and associated floodplain are located. So again, this report is presented to council tonight for information purposes, as staff would like to initiate discussion and solicit feedback from council and from the public. As such, staff recommend that this report be received for information. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for that presentation, Marion. I understand that we have a number of applicants. Okay, so the first one is Michelle Dornbush, who is registered to speak on behalf of the application on behalf of Ballymote Developments, Inc. And I see you're there. The floor is yours, Michelle.
Hi, thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. My name is Michelle Dornbush. I'm with Brock Development Group. Marion gave an excellent overview of what we're proposing in the Ballymote development area. Essentially, what we're looking to do is to utilize the existing properties that are identified and have always been intended for residential development. The lands themselves, as Marion had outlined, are already designated in the Hamlet settlement area. Statement except for lot 20, the lands are also zoned to permit the residential lots that are proposed. So essentially, we are just implementing the long-term intent for these lands by allowing the severance for the lots that are proposed, the 20 lots. The existing dwelling does fit very nicely actually onto lot 18. It doesn't require any variances. Sorry, it's an existing dwelling. So we've been able to accommodate that as well. And outside of that, we are looking to maintain the agricultural lands over the long term, as well as the woodlot. So we have no intent of developing that at any point in time. Obviously, it's not inside of the Hamlet area. So at this point, we are strictly just looking to utilize those existing lands that have been identified within the municipality's residential land supply and affect the official plan and zoning that's been in place on this for a long time. We are doing some additional review of the material that's been provided to Marion, and we will continue with ongoing discussions with staff with regards to nitrate levels and any concerns they may have as we continue to work through this process at municipal and county levels. If there's any concerns raised by council, I appreciate an opportunity to speak to those if necessary. And if council has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you for that. I will now look to Kelly Rodriguez, who is a member of the public and has registered to speak to the application. Thank you.
Asked Kelly to unmute, but we don't see anything. So let's give another minute or two and then we'll prompt again. Just ask Kelly if she can hear us once more.
Kelly, can you hear us? You're on mute.
Okay, we can go ahead and move forward.
Okay. Yeah, if she comes back, we can always jump in. I'm going to look to council now for questions and comments on what they've heard. I'll take Deputy Mayor, everybody's, okay, so Deputy Mayor Bren, then I saw Sue, and then we'll just go to Councillor Heffernan and Shipley. So take it away, Deputy.
Okay, just a couple of things I'd like to see going forward are the drainage issues. Now, knowing that there are a lot of drainage issues in the Ballymote area, I'd like some confirmation that can be looked after, because there are problems there. And also, I would like to make sure we buy water from the city there, make sure the capacity is there for that many houses. There are a large number of houses going in there, and I just have concerns in those two areas I'd like staff to follow up on. Thank you.
Thank you for that input. I'll go to Councillor Cates now.
Hi, through you, Madam Mayor. I just have a question about to clarify lot 18. Is there already a house there? Is it maybe the farmhouse that's there? I just was confused on that.
Marion, do you want to take that?
Sure, through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Case. Yes, there is an existing house on those lands. I don't know if it was the original farmhouse, but it was an existing house. And with the proposed plan of subdivision, it would fit nicely onto lot 18.
Thank you. So then what is the one that says residential? That's just a piece that was severed off long ago and it belongs to somebody else?
Yes, that's correct. And there isn't actually an existing single detached dwelling on that property, but it's completely separate from this plan of subdivision.
Thank you.
Okay, if you have nothing further, then I'll go to Councillor Heffernan.
Thanks. Through the mayor to, I guess just to everybody, I just have some comments to make. First of all, I am concerned about the drainage and the nitrates issues. So Deputy Mayor Brennan already brought up the drainage and the woodland area next to it. With all these houses being built, I'm just concerned with the effect on the woodland and also any the drainage on existing houses. So, and the 20th, lot number 20 is outside the settlement boundary as far as I could tell. And I am not in favor of extending the settlement boundary simply because every time we do that for one lot, you end up continuing on both sides, just each time to supposedly round it out. It is a 60-mile or 60-kilometer zone through Ballymote. And I know that currently I'm concerned about the school stops. And I'm sure Mr. Trainee will have issues to cover off. However, right now the school buses stop on both sides of the road for safety reasons. So I'm assuming that 60 kilometers is probably not actually recognized from drivers that go through. So again, this is going to mean that like Highbury is arterial. It is 60 right now. This would mean additional stops, I would assume, for school children. So anyway, there's still a lot that I think needs to be addressed in the long term. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Scott? I think you had your hand up as well, right?
Actually, no, I didn't. Maybe I was just waving it, but I didn't. Sorry. I don't have any questions right at the moment.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Was that your hand, Councillor Shipley? Yes, go ahead. And then Councillor Arts, I see you as well.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a few points. Once again, the drainage thing, big concern with that, as the drain or the ditch that runs west to east on the south side of Medway Road is approximately 6 feet deep by 15 feet wide. So I'm not sure how you're going to handle that capacity wise when you put the driveways in. My own house does drain into that, and I've got concerns. I've seen that ditch full at times. The other point is, what Councilor Heffernan was making is lot 20. I'm not in favor of taking that out of, or putting that into the hamlet, because I know what's going to happen, as Debbie said, they'll start at both sides of the road. I also think, as opposed, the other thought of putting the access to the farm, Medway Road, just use that lot 20 as your access into the farm would be, to me, more practical. Also, concerns with the width of the lots. I'd like to see 100-foot lots here. Now, they're 100-foot on Medway Road. The biggest concern I have is once we take a 76-foot lot and 13-foot side yard setbacks, we're down to a 63-foot lot for a house, basically. And as maybe I could just agree with Mr. Houghton, I'm a little bit had my fill of variances in respect to side yard setbacks. So I'm pretty sure if we go with these 63-foot lots, 71-foot lots with the side yard setbacks, we'll have 19 variances coming forward. And I'm not prepared to allow variances anymore, basically on new builds. That's all for now. Thank you.
If there's no one else, okay, I'm just going to jump. Oh, go ahead, Councillor Arts.
Through you, Madam Mayor, Councillor Shipley's pretty well voiced all of my concerns too. That ditch on Medway Road, that fills up with water in the spring. So you're gonna have to have culverts for laneways that are about the size of that ditch. And as far as the farm access, I'd rather see that on lot 22, because to have a 40-foot access, which with the large machinery you need, you couldn't afford to put the culvert on the Medway Road side. And also, if the houses do go in along Medway Road, I think you better double check the bell cable that's hanging there, because I'm pretty sure it's low enough the cement trucks will tear it off. And I also agree with, if this goes through, I will not have any minor variances. If it's a small lot, you're gonna have to put a narrower house on it, because like Councillor Shipley said, I'm sick and tired of people knowing what the rules are, and then once they want the house, they decide, well, we can stretch it a bit. Well, I'm sorry, I'm pretty well had it with that stuff too. Thank you.
Any additional comments? Councillor Scott.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, because of, in light of the fact that this is a rural community and there is going to be septic systems, I too kind of agree with Councillor Shipley on the lot sizes, thinking that they're probably more attractive too, because they are in a rural area, to be a bigger lot and give people a little bit more elbow space there, because we may not see sewers there for many years or ever, for that matter. Just a comment. Thank you.
Okay, I don't see any additional hands. My comment relates to the, I guess, swales, as they're referred to, that the ditches along the back of the properties. And I want to make sure that the drainage pieces are really looked at carefully, and that the areas that are between lots, to the extent that fences go in the lower parts, it looks like the arrows go back to the back of the lot, and then there's the ditch at the back. What happens when people change grades? What if they put in swimming pools? How is it that the grading that is going to be part of the development is maintained over time, such that the water is going to the back where it's supposed to make sure that people aren't getting flooded. And also that fences don't end up in the swale. And we've had experiences with swales and ditches to handle water from storm events in different parts of the community. And I think staff spends a lot of time managing things that don't need to be managed if they're handled up front properly. So I'm not prepared to spend a lot of time going through the kind of stuff we've been going through with some of those issues in other communities going forward either. So I think I can't add anything else that's unique. So thank you, councillors, for your input. We have a motion before us that the report PLA 35 2021 regarding zoning bylaw amendment ZBA 08 2021 and official plan amendment OPA 54 and plan of subdivision 39T MC 2101 applications filed by Ballymote Developments be received for information. Do I have a mover and a seconder for that, please? Councillor Arts and Councillor Scott. Is anyone opposed? Okay, seeing none, that is carried. And we can move to item 8.7, and Marion is again the planner on that file. There you are. If you'd like to take that away and give us the report, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. The municipality received an application for a zoning bylaw amendment for the lands known as 14375 Medway Road in Arva. The applicant is proposing to rezone the lands from an urban residential first density zone, or the UR1 zone, to a site-specific urban residential third density, or UR3 zone, to permit the development of 6 townhouses. Pull up the location map. So the applicant the lands are located on the south side of Medway Road and east of Arva Street. The lands are approximately 0.62 acres in area and contain a single detached dwelling. The lands are surrounded by residential uses to the west, south, and north, and some commercial lands to the west along Medway Road, and institutional uses immediately to the east and to the north as well. So the applicant has provided a conceptual site plan for the purposes of the rezoning application. The site plan is preliminary and will be refined through the site plan review process. The site plan does show an orientation of the 6 proposed townhouse units to back onto the high school property. The development will use the existing access of Medway Road to create the driveway to the units, and each unit will contain 3 parking spaces. However, no visitor parking is proposed. The development is proposed to be on municipal sanitary and water services, and design elements, landscaping, and stormwater management would be addressed through the site plan review process as well. And finally, a plan of condominium is not proposed for these units. However, the lands can be converted to a plan of condominium in the future if the landowner chooses to do that. So the proposed rezoning generally meets the intent of the PPS and the county official plan for infilling on existing lots with municipal servicing, and staff will review the application against the appropriate sections of the local official plan as they relate to medium density development. The requested zone maintains most of the standards of the urban residential third density zone, but requests the following site-specific standards. Specifically, the applicant is requesting to permit only townhouse dwelling units and accessory uses, as opposed to other forms of medium to higher density development. Additionally, they have requested that the minimum front yard setback be addressed. Currently, what is proposed already meets and exceeds that standard. However, this will be further refined based on comments and feedback from the county roads department. And additionally, the minimum side yard setback will be addressed. As it is proposed right now in this plan, it currently exceeds the minimum standard, but this also accounts for increased setback and yardage between the high school and other residential properties in the area. So this application was circulated to area residents, staff, and agencies in accordance with the Planning Act. At the time of writing this report, staff did not receive any comments from the public. However, staff received multiple emails and submissions from area residents leading up to this public meeting. A majority of the concerns are related to increased traffic and congestion from the additional units, compatibility of the intensification in townhouses with the rest of the community, compatibility with the modern design and the scale that's proposed, the location and existing traffic along Medway, pedestrian safety, especially for students along that walk along Medway Road and going to the high school, and the lack of visitor parking. There's also additional concerns about logistics about the site, including snow removal and storage and garbage and recycling collecting. Additionally, there was a concern about the loss of trees and vegetation on the property. So the Building and Public Works and Engineering departments reviewed the rezoning application and don't have any objections. Detailed site comments would be provided through the site plan review. Additionally, the county engineer did not provide comments at the time of writing this report. However, it was expected that comments would address setbacks, access, and land dedication. Lastly, we did request that the Thames Valley District School Board review this application, and they did provide us with some details related to site plan and provision of fencing and other more site-specific details that could be addressed through the site plan review. However, they didn't provide any comments related to this rezoning request. Again, this report is presented to Council tonight for information purposes, as staff would like to initiate discussion and solicit feedback from the Council and public. As such, staff recommend that this report be received for information, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for that presentation, Marion. I'll turn to Matthew Thompson, who's the applicant and has registered to speak.
Thank you, Mayor.
There you are. Hello, go ahead, Matthew.
So I know there was a lot of talk about the setbacks and variance to that. We're not trying to move any buildings closer to Medway Road than any of the existing buildings along Medway Road. The existing dwelling that's there would be essentially the front of the proposed new building, just to clarify that. And we also read a lot of the comments and the feedbacks from the public, and our intent is not to upset the entire town of Arva. We're trying to build a building that fits in there. It's a very, like you say, it's a high density, different area of Arva. There was talk about Arva being expanded, the downtown area of Arva being expanded into commercial to expand like the urban part of Arva. And we're just trying to have a building that fits in along that game plan better than an old home that's kind of run down. As far as the loss of vegetation, there really are only 2 trees that will need to be removed. And those 2 trees are pretty well at the end of their life cycle. They have a lot of dead limbs and they're old trees. So we would plant way more trees than we ever removed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Is Mr. Pronk on? Okay, the next registered presenter is Mr. Blake Pronk, who is a member of the public. And we're just waiting for him to unmute and take it away. Hello.
Hello, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, the floor is yours.
Oh, excellent, thank you. Good evening all. My name is Blake Pronk. I'm a family and a resident member and a family resident within Arva. I'd like to thank you, Mayor DeVete and the Middlesex Center Council for inviting me to attend this. And I'd also like to thank the applicant and his family for submitting this application for discussion, because without these submissions, we wouldn't have these robust discussions. And this provides a welcome opportunity for residents of Arva to reflect on how they view the future of the village. So thank you, everyone. The purpose of my comments today are really to ensure that all potential considerations are explored during this information gathering stage and prior to the municipality making a decision. So thank you again. So I'm speaking from the position of someone within a family who has recently moved to Arva, intentionally seeking space and the benefits of community, and more families appear to be yearning for these types of lots and these types of homes. And it's my position that these should be protected if at all feasible. I've both been a Londoner and now I'm an Arvite, and the proposal as tabled, in my humble opinion, appears to resemble many characteristics of portions of recent large land developments within London to the south. And as we all know, Arva is not an extension of North London. And we've even put in very gorgeous signs recently that I've seen over the past year that look great. This isn't a new land development proposal. And of course, any new planned development would have sections that would be allocated for various mixed housing units. But this proposal simply alters an existing makeup of existing ARVA, and not insignificantly. This could send a clear signal and has the potential to be precedent setting within our tiny village. This could, so to speak, open the floodgates a little bit. Many residents have, 3/4 acre lots that could effectively be maximized to the detriment of existing neighbors, and it's unclear where this would end and why it must happen now. Again, this is not a large scale project. It's not planned in terms of a large development with diverse housing options. And the proposal to convert a single dwelling home with one laneway within an area of exclusively other single dwelling homes into a new condensed housing zone with 6 separate units, 18 car spaces, and no visitor parking right beside adjacent homes and a school is a big change. Logistically, and I believe you summarized these quite well earlier, there appears to be a few infrastructure challenges. One laneway on a busy Medway road would exacerbate the existing challenges. Moreover, as we move along to Arva Street towards Weldon Park, there appear to be no streetlights right now. There are no sidewalks, no buses, no public transit. And if you visited the park lately, the street is now often full of cars parked on both sides. So it's not clear where visitors would park. It's not clear where the snow removal would go or storm drainage. And this would simply augment current challenges, not relieve it. Moreover, at 3 stories, it would be among the tallest units in Arva right now, with the top unit floors looking over existing homes as well as the high school. Unless and until we have proper infrastructure for new residents on the southeast side of Arva, doesn't appear to be something that's needed to be commenced at this time. Moreover, I would like to submit that it's always important to balance what you've lost versus what's gained when making decisions like these. Adding 6 dwellings into a single unit dwelling lot doesn't appear to outweigh the cost, in my opinion. If COVID's taught us anything, it's that living space is critical, and Middlesex Center is uniquely positioned to offer its residents and future residents a wonderful assortment of existing homes to enjoy their space. This proposal as drafted appears to be a little inconsistent with the thoughtful planning and evolution of this lovely town. It's the space from the city, and there doesn't appear to be a need to cram city into this space. It seems a little unnecessary at this time and doesn't appear to achieve a pressing purpose. Condensed housing will come. One only needs to look to the southwest and northwest sides of Arva. The municipality will surely be able to achieve its desired housing mix in due course in a thoughtful and planned and less disruptive manner. I don't wish to sound adverse to change. I'm certainly not. Change is necessary, but we need to weigh the impacts of that. This proposal would likely go beyond just a mere impact and have the potential to be disruptive to the immediate neighbors to the south and west, as well as others to a lesser degree. This would disrupt their current manner of living and enjoyment of life without a clear greater benefit outweighing that disruption. One unit moved to 6 doesn't move the needle enough, and the space may not be the right space. This could really be the first pull of a thread that unwinds what's been built up for decades and generations. In discussions with my fellow Arvites, this proposal appears to cut against the reasonable expectations of its current residents, and I would submit that it's incumbent on the municipality and its council to preserve its villages. It's what makes Middlesex Center so special and unique, and a wonderful complement to the other towns and villages within it. Lastly, I'd like to submit for deliberation and thought the opportunity cost of making this decision now. Going back to my earlier point, Arva is so lovely because of its proximity to the city and its incredibly rare diversification of space. Making this zone shift removes an opportunity from future families from enjoying the space and the land, as well as dampens the enjoyment of existing and future neighboring properties. If we raise everything, tear it down, and build condensed housing, then we lose that je ne sais quoi that makes Arva so special, and we can't get it back. Of course, and there have been really great points raised earlier, there are going to be counterpoints to what I've raised, and valuable ones too. And I'm not suggesting that there's only one way to look at this. And while I'm mindful of many letters that have already been submitted, I've not yet seen or heard points that I've raised today. So I just wanted to add to the discussion. In sum, I don't believe there's a pressing need for high density housing in this particular location. And it doesn't appear to be a clear access of living scenario or one that needs to be made now. I don't think it's the appropriate time for such a zoning change. That will probably come, but that would be a different discussion entirely. Thanks for your time. That's all.
Thank you for that presentation. The next person who has dialed in is Mr. Brandon Carter, also a member of the public.
All right, done.
video?
Yeah.
You're still on, Blake.
Oh, hello, everyone. I'm still on.
Yeah. And there's Mr. Carter. Okay.
Hello.
You're on the floor, Mr. Carter.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. Thank you for taking the time to hear concerns and the applicant for being present as well. Myself and my wife, Emma, live at 14371 Medway Road, which is directly west to the subject property. I'm guessing at this time you guys have read over everyone's letters, and I mean, I think Blake just kind of hit home all of our concerns. So there's no more that we really need to say in relation to the application. The biggest thing for us is really the height and the density of what's being proposed. It is kind of drastically different to what is currently in the area, as everyone are single family homes of 1 or 2 story. So the proposal for 6 3-story townhomes is, like I said, extremely drastic to what is currently in the area. And again, other than that, I think what Marion said and what Blake has said pretty well hits home on all of our issues.
Well, good. Thank you for taking time to comment. Heather? No. Okay. The next person who's registered to speak is Mr. Dave Hoppenberg. And there you are. You are on mute. We can see your picture, but we can't hear you yet.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Mayor DeVitt. I trust you can hear me now.
Yes, it's clear as a bell. Thank you.
Oh, perfect. Okay, so I just a few points to add to what Blake and Brandon have presented. You know, with my rough math, I found that the proposal represents about a 3x increase in what would be the kind of average density of homes per hectare in the existing Southeast subdivision. So a 3x increase is, I don't think it's a reasonable transition in density. And the official plan does call for compatibility with adjacent structures and surrounding compatibility with adjacent structures and the surrounding neighborhood character. I'm speaking now. Further concerns about the tree canopy, which have been mentioned. Having driveways for 18 vehicles creates a whole bunch of new asphalt, which increases a whole bunch of new runoff. And so I have environmental concerns about that as well. The orientation of the property is now facing a side yard of an existing property. And again, the official plan states that new residences should be oriented where possible towards the street. So of course, this is not the case with the interior driveways facing a side yard. And of course, it has been mentioned as well that these are 3-story townhouses versus primarily 1 and some 2-story homes in the neighborhood. So again, it's just a very kind of inappropriate increase in density versus what is in Southeast Arva right now. Of course, we'll see increases in noise, traffic, and then on the adjacent properties, of course, privacy infringements on the abutting properties. So with all this said, we oppose the current proposal based on a lack of compliance with the design goals and policies of the official plan of Middlesex Center. And with that, I will turn it back to you, Mayor DeVitt.
Thank you for your comments. Next. David, okay. We'll move now to Mr. David Sylvester, also a member of the public.
I'm sorry, was that directed at me?
Well, we
David.
can hear you now. The floor is yours, Mr. Sylvester. Go ahead.
I've been sitting patiently listening to all this, and my computer just died, or my Wi-Fi died.
That's the way it goes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and councilors. This is my first attending at a council meeting, although I lived in Arva for 13 years now, and I spend my days chairing meetings, and I'm impressed by the efficiency of this meeting. So thank you. I would like to echo some of the concerns that have been expressed earlier, and I would like to characterize this from my perspective and my wife's perspective as, and I live at 71 Sir James Court, so within the 120 meter scope of this. And I'm glad that this is being presented as an information rather than a decision item at this point, because it's sort of late breaking news within Arva. Many of my neighbors have only heard about it within the last few days. Aside from the design and densification and other issues, I'd like to focus primarily on the traffic. As has been pointed out, all vehicles up to 18 plus service vehicles will be entering or leaving directly onto Medway Road, right next door to the entrance into the parking lot of Medway High School. And this is a particular troublesome area of Medway, because there's a ridge as you're driving, as you know, west towards Richmond Street. There's blind spots there, and as a parent of 2 Medway students living on the north side of Medway, we know how dangerous this has been, because students tend, and now there's a overflow parking lot at the Arva Fire Hall for Medway High School. So the number of students crossing in the afternoon, in the morning, across Medway, and believe me, there, without other crossing areas, nobody walks over to Richmond and Medway to cross to go to Medway High School. It's become a very a high density risk area for this. With the introduction of the child care center at the old United Church, it's very complicated with traffic stopping and starting on that area. And I've outlined this in a letter that I've written to council and to Marion. But we think this is a real hazard, frankly, with the increased traffic up to 18 cars plus service vehicles into that particular area. And so I'm happy to have an opportunity to contribute further. And I think you'll be hearing from other neighbors as well, that this isn't really representative of the neighborhood. I want to emphasize that I'm not, and nor are my neighbors, opposed to further development. We actually like the commercialization and the 1- and 2-story areas that are happening along Richmond and Medway, but this seems to be out of character. And I think it was described by Matthew as high density. I think it's more medium density, but it's out of character for this area. If you look further south towards where Arva Park is, Weldon Park, the developments there, which are significant development, those are all 1- and 2-story and very popular in the neighborhood and representative of the community. I guess the only comment I would like to leave with is this stretch of Medway really is kind of like a village because of the pedestrian usage of it, much more than other areas of Medway. And to introduce additional traffic into this area, I think would be a mistake. So I just leave it at that. In my letter, I've outlined densification issues and others, design issues. But for me, with children, it's really about the traffic. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. And the final applicants have not attended either. So that brings us to the end of the public piece. I will ask council then if they would like to comment or highlight anything, respond, observe. Councillor Heffernan.
Through the mayor to just to comment, I echo many of the comments that have been already made by the public, particularly in respect of complementing the neighborhood. This is not really an infill situation. This is strictly tearing down a house and putting up 6 new ones. The topography of the lot is higher and then it slopes down. So you add 3-story townhouses onto that and it's going to be really high. And the paved, as one speaker mentioned about the paved area, that's going to increase the runoff, which would sort of go down to the people on the corner there or behind. So it's going to create more runoff issues to neighboring properties. And I'm not sure, according to the drawings, it appears as though that there are fences between each unit and then a big fence along the back. So I'm just wondering, like, is there going to be grassed areas, or, you know, it just seems as though you're sort of sitting in a little cell there. Anyway, those are my comments. But as I said, they've been echoed a lot by the current speakers. Thank you.
Take Councillor Schwartz next.
Through your Madam Mayor, not sure if this is appropriate, but I'm going to address the issue anyways. I would appreciate, I realize people took a lot of time and effort to make the comments and send in letters, but as a councillor, I've got time constraints too. And when stuff starts showing up the day of a council meeting, to be quite honest, I haven't looked at some of the letters because my day's been full. If you could get those letters in a couple days before the council meeting, I'm pretty for sure the rest of the staff and councillors would appreciate it. It would just give us more time to digest the information. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who wants to add to the conversation? Councillor Cates.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, to Matthew. Is just to clarify, are these rental townhouses or will you be selling them?
Yeah, so there's kind of a misconception with what is being proposed to build. The 3 stories, the first story is actually like a basement in the ground to retain the soil along the parking lot of Medway High School. So even though it's considered a 3-story building, it's only going to be the height of a 2-story building with a flat modern roof. So it won't be this big protruding building that everyone thinks it's going to be. We lived in Arva for 2 years right beside the high school. We have kids that are going to go to Medway High School. We're very aware of the traffic issues there. I'm sure this is something that's going to have to happen and be addressed. These townhouses are going to be sold to young families that hopefully will provide an affordable place for them to live in the community that we love. We're not trying to, you know, we're not huge developers. We're not trying to make this big profitable thing. We literally want to have some affordable homes for younger families.
Okay, so then they are for resale. So is this the style where when you walk in from, let's say, your front door or your garage, you're actually on the basement? Or is the basement under the ground?
Yes, so when you walk in, you would be in the basement level.
Yeah, okay, I'm familiar. Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Sorry, is there anyone else who wants to make an inquiry or comment? Okay, I don't see any more hands. So the motion before us is that report PLA 51 2021 regarding zoning bylaw amendment ZBA 10 2021 for 14375 Medway Road, filed by Matthew Thompson, be received for information. If I could have a mover, please, and a seconder. Councillor Cates and Councillor Scott. Is anyone opposed? And that is carried. That is received then. Thank you for your time, both of you. And we'll move now to item 8.8, which is a zoning bylaw amendment filed by Zlinka Priamo. Matt Campbell will be speaking on behalf of Omnicare County Terrace and Omni Healthcare CT GPCO Limited. Marian, if you'd start us off with a report, please.
Great, thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. Just to remind Council members that the report that was submitted had a recommendation to approve the zoning bylaw amendment. However, that has since changed, and the recommendation is to receive this report for information. So some of you are already familiar with the application in hand. I'll just bring up the location map for you. So the municipality received the zoning bylaw amendment application for lands known as 10072 Oxbow Drive in Pamoka. The purpose of the requested rezoning application was to rezone the land from institutional to a site-specific urban residential third density zone to permit medium density development such as townhomes, multiple unit dwellings and apartment dwellings. Specifically, the proposal had originally called for 50 townhouse units on the property adjacent to the Country Terrace long-term care home. The application was before council last September for information, and then with a recommendation for approval in December of last year. At the meeting in December, council had directed the application to consider alternatives for this site as a result of concerns identified by the public and by council, including setbacks, screening, preservation of trees, road network design, and of course, density. Additionally, there was a preference to see an institutional use continue on these lands, such as an expansion of the long-term care facility or a new assisted living facility or a dedicated seniors or retirement home. So the applicant had reviewed the options for the site. However, they advised staff that they were unable to obtain funding for similar healthcare facilities. As such, they provided a revised site plan, which you can see on your screen before you, to support this rezoning application. And this site plan had reduced the townhomes to 45 units and increased the setbacks to the easterly property line, and created a smaller townhouse unit blocks. Originally it was 10 units per block. However, they've broken it up to 4 and 5 units. So as previously mentioned, staff had supported a rezoning application based on the site plan that was provided. Staff had also recommended to include additional uses such as a nursing home or retirement home should the plans change in the future. Additionally, staff had recommended holding symbols be placed on the property to consider noise impact due to proximity to the railway, undertaking of a public site plan review, and an urban design brief to be in conformity with the Kamoka-Kilworth secondary plan. So leading up to this public meeting, the applicant had advised staff that the proposed zone standards were too restrictive and that the general zone for townhouses was preferred with a maximum cap on the unit, so a maximum of 45 units in this case. After these recent discussions with the applicant, staff understand that the proposed use may change in the future and request that we revisit the development plans to confirm the intended uses on the land. A notice of the meeting was circulated to those who previously commented on the file. Staff received comments from the public who continue to prefer the institutional use or seniors complex on the lands. And there were additional comments related to tree preservation, density, privacy, lighting, and drainage. And those are the concerns that we saw before from the public. So as previously mentioned, municipal staff as previously mentioned at the last meeting in December, municipal staff will provide more detailed and technical comments at the time of site plan review, and then no concerns with the proposed rezoning. So as a result of the above, the report presented tonight is recommended to be received for information, as staff would like to revisit the development plans with the applicants, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you for that report. The proponents are on the line. So we have Matt Campbell and Spig, and I'm not wanting to mess up these. I don't want to mess up that name, so I'm just going to say Spig. So I think you're taking it away, are you, Matt?
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor DeVitt. You can't mess up my last name, just Campbell, so that's pretty easy. And thanks, Marianne, for that presentation. Just to add on to that, we certainly are thankful to staff for processing this application. We're thankful to council for considering this. The point that I just want to make here is that when we actually came in for our original application for this site, we were asking for more general zoning provisions that would allow a limited amount of flexibility in the ultimate site development. And staff are suggesting zoning regulations that would allow Omni to develop this site, well, not even to the concept that we have provided, but it's actually further restrictive than the concept that we have provided. So we wouldn't even be able to do that. The consequence to Omni is that it is a very restrictive plan that doesn't allow any of that flexibility. And for example, one of the items that's in the draft bylaw is a front yard setback of 16 meters. And if Omni was dead set on this particular plan, then that likely wouldn't be an issue, but it does restrict the actual development that can occur. For instance, If there was a modification of this proposal to push the townhouses closer to Oxbow and do sort of a rear lane access that might provide a bit more street presence, a bit more urban design character for the site, that wouldn't actually be possible with the zoning that we're looking at today. And again, that setback goes well beyond the standards for that, that zone that we are looking to implement. So I think at this point, we'd like more opportunity to discuss the actual zoning regulations with staff. That really wasn't presented to us in advance of this meeting. That's why I think there was a sense of urgency that council may have perceived in the last couple of days with this. So we would like a bit more time to consult with staff and arrive at some zoning regulations that would be agreeable to both sides, while also taking into account the public comments that were received. So we have Zbig on the line as well. Just to reiterate, we're happy to answer any questions that council or the public may have with this application development.
Okay. We have a number of residents who have registered to speak tonight. I'm not sure that some of their questions they will want answers given what you're proposing, but we're going to go through the list and just make sure and see what they have to say. So yes, I see Jermaine Harvey was here a moment ago.
Yes, I'm here.
There you are. Okay. Given what you've just heard, are there questions or comments based on the sort of I guess the track that Matt has laid out for the next step? Or it's up to you. You can decide what do you want to make your comments relative to what was presented, or do you want to ask questions about where they're going? You've got 10 minutes. So.
Okay, thanks. Well, I guess if I set out the concerns that that I've got, and then if these are going to be addressed by the revised plan, then great, all to the good. We moved in recently, and I note earlier on there was a comment about timeliness of submissions, and my apologies if I was late. What I will say to you is we've received no formal notification as a resident about these plans. It took a neighbour to stop us on the street to tell us what was happening. What you should be aware of is that there are multiple properties on Union Avenue where residents are not in place at the moment. These are empty properties. These are going to be affected. So this, the absence of residents being in place is going to affect the number of people who will be submitting concerns here. So you should be aware of that. I've made clear our concerns as moving into this place. It was clear to us that the fear of the development was enough to send our seller onto the market. We weren't given full information, and we bought the property. We need to come in and find the development plans. I've expressed in detail what our concerns are in terms of a social and financial impact on myself and my family. One of the things that's come out of this meeting has been very useful to attend is the issue of drainage. We are talking about a very high density in the original and the revised plans. If the plan is to change the number of units significantly in terms of a downward movement, then that might be slightly better. But as the land at the rear of the property is at an elevation, replacing grass with concrete is invariably going to reduce the dispersion of water. That water will then, as a result of the elevation, run into the gardens of the properties, of which mine is one. This is a major concern. It's not something I detailed in my letter, so apologies. I've only been dealing with this information since Thursday of last week. So there's a very serious concern there. Having been a resident here for several weeks, we've also had the development of Union Avenue, and as you may be aware, on Friday there was an evacuation because construction hit a gas main. We have seen the disruption that the development causes just in that developmental stage. My concerns go further than that. They go on to the impact moving forward in terms of where these properties are placed. Even the reduced number of units, the reduced number at 45 would have a unit very close to our property. Our properties have not been designed with that in mind. There is a very small backyard space, and because the land at the rear is at an elevation, this will have inevitable impact on the amount of sunlight that gets into the property. There are multiple problems here in terms of access to the properties. I'm sure residents will mention this in terms of the sunlight that gets into our property and in terms of drainage. And that's not to mention the issue, if we feel it necessary to sell because we didn't want to be overlooked, that is going to have an inevitable impact on the price of the property. If I sound distraught, if I'm not being coherent, my apologies, Mayor and members of council. This is a very upsetting piece of news for us. So I'll leave it at that. I'm more than happy if somebody wants to pick up on anything I've said, I can come back. Thank you.
Thank you for your input. Next person is here. Yes. Okay. Mr. Paul Milemans, also a member of the public, is registered to speak. And we see you, but we see that you're still on mute, Paul. There we go.
Good, thank you.
You may go ahead, Paul, when you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and councillors. I spoke to you last September when this application was first introduced. We had some many concerns, serious concerns about our privacy and other matters of what we'll call high density in an immediate single-family residential neighborhood. We still have those concerns and have even more concerns as we have lived here a bit longer. Our privacy would be greatly impacted. The homes that are being proposed would be just over the fence, looking down on us. The driveways or the driveway would come down towards us, and lights would shine into our back of our house, into our kitchen, into our living room, into our bedrooms. Those privacy concerns affect us very much. The drainage, the lay of the land, and the way our lot is laid out, we're very much concerned about water runoff, flooded basements. It is something that I've experienced in the past, and I didn't think we'd have those to contend with, and they now are very possible to appear again. I've expressed our various concerns last September. I've put them down to repeat some of those in my letter that I sent out, and some other things sitting back and looking. The development of those lands in the form as proposed with the 5 rows of townhouses would remove quite a number of trees, some quite mature trees, some trees that is used by wildlife. Lots of birds here. We have the blue jays, we have the orioles, we have the cardinals, the red-winged blackbirds, the hummingbirds, and others. They find refuge in the backyard. That will disappear. I think it's been added to the recommendations that have now been deferred for the noise study. The CP line goes not too far away, and that noise is quite significant. That would certainly impact residents that would move in if this proposal was approved. Our privacy are change that would change our comfort of sitting in our backyard, enjoying our property. Those are the things that causes us to be opposed to this development and to voice our opinion as much as we can so that what we now have, we can continue to the greatest possible extent to keep. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your input. Mr. Houghton? Yeah, okay. Mr. Houghton is also registered for this and is, I see you there, but we won't hear you just yet. You're still muted. There you go. Are you wanting to add to this tonight, or based on the new information, are you waiting to hear for the new and improved version?
Mayor DeVete, I never give up an opportunity to speak, and I will take my few minutes here to talk. First of all, I've already expressed my opinions on the compatibility of this development on the neighborhood, and I'll let the neighbors deal with that, as I'm a few more than 150 or 200 feet away from it. So I would just like to say a few things. First, I was encouraged to see the latest site plan with reduced numbers and some separation between the blocks of units. That was a good move. I just have 3 comments that I would just like to make. My comment number 1, I still believe that losing this institutionally zoned property to residential development is a major loss to the community from both an economic and service perspective. I am still unclear that hypothetically, if funding was approved, would the applicant build an institutional option? That question won't be answered tonight, but I would like to hear that. If the applicant is still open to an institutional option, I would hope that some pressure could be put on the government by the community, municipality, and media for funding an expanded long-term care facility beyond what's already approved, or preferably a retirement home. I also believe the community would appreciate knowing what has transpired since December with respect to pursuing institutional options for this property from both the applicant and Middlesex Center's perspective. We need to know how far the request for funding has gone with the government. We shouldn't stop until Minister Fulton says no. That's how I feel about this. If I can get a date as to when the info would be available to how far the funding request has gone up the government chain, I would appreciate it, as well as what Middlesex Center has done to hopefully encourage the institutional use of this land. Number 2 is a bit of a repeat, but I will still, my comment number 2 is a bit of a repeat, but I will say it anyway. Clear cutting this property of mature trees does not seem to be environmentally responsible. It is not. This development also eliminates this green space from being enjoyed by the residents. If you go into that area, there's a walking path. When we clear cut this area, the existing residents really are looking onto a development in townhouse. Can you still hear me? Oh, can you still hear me? Nods?
Yeah.
Okay, there's some, anyway, so my concern is that the residents have lost the big green space. And what are we going to do about it? So I request that staff and council work with the applicant to integrate some of these trees into the site plan design, as well as a replacement for the green space being lost to the residents. I assume there's a parkland dedication money is associated with this. I think it would be rightful that it would go towards creating a better environment or replacing the green environment that's being lost for the residents. They have a sidewalk, they walk back and forth right now. Occasionally wheelchairs come down towards me. That's a bit of a path, but it is really a nice location there with those trees and the circular park, and it's a nice place to sit down. And I'll just leave it at that. I've said it before. My last comment was at the December public meeting, there were public comments on making this a seniors complex and how that would fill a need in the community, complementing the seniors apartments we already have. The applicant indicated they could not restrict these rental units to a seniors age group due to anti-discrimination laws. I would like to point out that Canadian Fair Housing Law makes an exception for senior communities. It is legal to restrict these rental units to a seniors age group. This is the only type of age restricted community under Canadian law. If the rental townhouse version of this development proceeds, I would encourage council and staff to work with the applicant in making it age restricted to fill a need in the community. And that was my last comment. And just as I exit, I appreciate the discussion around agenda item 8.6. That was a good job. I really like to hear what you guys said. So Keep up the good work. And with that, Madam Chair, I yield the balance of my time.
Thank you very much. And Derek, is Brooke? Alejandra is? Okay, so we do have one more speaker. There we are, Alejandra Klein.
Yes, hi.
Go ahead, the floor is yours.
Yeah, well, I just want to reinforce all this information that my neighbors have given. We have living in the area for approximately 10 years. Our backyard, it's also the backyard of the retirement, like the nursing home. And I don't think at this point, when I see the drawings, then our property will be affected by the proposal, but we are concerned about all the like just what they say, the trees, they're beautiful trees, they're mature trees. It's a lot of wildlife that comes here, like Paul said, the birds, the rabbits. It's just such a nice area, and it's really a shame that they wanted to do these apartments here. And just to support them, you know what? This is everyone bought these houses thinking that we're gonna enjoy these trees for the rest of our lives, because we did an investment, not thinking we're gonna move in a couple of years. This is a long time investment for our family, and it's just really sad to see that that they want to get rid of this. It's a beautiful. I don't know if you know the area, but it's a beautiful green area. It's been there for so many years, and I just think that I don't think it's the right decision. But I know we're gonna hear about this later. But I want just to say that it's just a beautiful area. It's gonna be a very shame to have those apartments there.
Okay, thank you, Alejandra. I'm going to look to council now. Comments, questions, clarifications? And okay, all right, so Councillor Cates first, and I see you, Councillor Shipley, as well.
Through you, Madam Mayor. So I realize this is maybe going to change, but so are these rental units for seniors? Is that correct? Or maybe that's
question for Matt.
Oh, sorry, for Matt, I guess. Okay. Yeah, sorry.
Thanks. Through you, Madam Mayor. That to Councillor Cates, that is the intent at this point in time. However, as was mentioned, we're looking for a little bit more flexibility in the zone that would allow potentially a different site configuration. But the proposal right now, as it stands, is yes, rental housing predominantly geared towards seniors.
Okay, because I had also, quote, heard that you wanted to be able to sell these.
That is a discussion that we're going to be having with Omni down the road. At this point in time, we're only looking at the zoning. Whether an application for a condominium comes in the future, we haven't gotten that far in the process, and it may be a bit premature to have those discussions. I think in terms of what the market would dictate, that would be Omni's preference, whether it makes sense to sell these units or whether it makes sense to rent. I think that's going to be a market reaction.
Okay, it is, I live very, very close by, and it is a beautiful piece of property off to the side there, and beautiful trees and stuff. And I am for, all in favor of the need for housing for seniors that have lived, they've lived here for many years, and now they want to downsize, etc. But this is excessive, I think. But anyways, I guess we'll see what your next proposal comes forward with, correct?
Okay, thank you. Then Councillor Shipley, you had your hand up. Or
yeah, through the mayor, is the fire chief on tonight? Is he available?
Through the mayor, I don't believe our chief is available right now.
Yeah, the clerk has confirmed that he's not. Do you want to wait then?
Okay,
Or
oh, that's fine. I'll talk to him.
actually, if you want to table the question, then staff will have it. It'll be part of the document, the meeting agenda. We lost him. Oh.
The internet's not working good tonight. I guess, yeah, I'll ask the question. I'm just wondering if Collins reviewed this in respect to no access on the east end of these buildings, I guess, as far as getting trucks around the end of the east end of the building. There's no road access there. So I'm just wondering looking for his input on that.
Okay, so that's noted and the clerk will take that back. Thank you, Councillor. Is there anything else? No.
Not for me, thank you.
Okay. Any other council members wanting clarification or comment? I don't see any. So the motion before us is that zoning bylaw amendment application 11-2020 as amended filed by Zelinka Priamo on behalf of Omnicare and Omni Healthcare to rezone a portion of the land at 172 Oxbow Drive and the land on Oxbow Drive concession 3 as per the information for the registration, to urban residential third density exception 14, that is UR 3-14, for medium density residential development be received as information. If I could have a mover, please, and a seconder. Councillor Shipley and Councillor Heffernan. Is anyone opposed? Seeing none, then that is carried, and that brings us to the end of public meetings. So I'm going to ask that we have a motion that Planning Committee does now close the planning public meetings and reconvene as regular council at 8:23 p.m. A mover, please, and a seconder. Deputy Mayor Brennan and Councillor Scott. Any opposed? Okay, and now we are sitting as councillor again. So now we have correspondence items. We have 4 items there, 10.1 through 10.4. Is there anything anyone wants to comment on? Okay, seeing none, then we have a motion that correspondence items 10.1 through 10.4 listed on the May 26th council agenda be received as information. And I would ask for a mover and a seconder. Councillor Scott, Councillor Cates. Anyone opposed? Seeing none. Now we'll move to County Council update. If the Deputy Mayor would bring us up to speed.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot to bring you up to speed on from yesterday. One of the things is it's Paramedic Services Week this week. So, any paramedics, give a thumbs up for the work they're doing and have done in the past year. Certainly, I think they've had to go beyond what they normally would have to do. We had a notice of motion from the mayor of Southwest Middlesex for lit stop signs at London Drive and Melbourne Road. There was a lot of questions and information we wanted to see from the OPP. There's a report coming from the OPP on that intersection on the number of accidents since some upgrades have been done. So that was deferred until a later meeting until we get further update from the Chris Trainey from the county. The county is looking at creating some mobile clinics. They've asked the province for some extra vaccine, not taken away from anybody, but to get some extra vaccine and have some mobile clinics that are going out to people that are homebound, can't get out, any senior settings where they can't access public transit to get to a clinic. So they're going to try to cover that off and see how it goes. Along that line, Thames Center is having a pop-up clinic in Dorchester, May 28th and 29th. I believe they're hoping to vaccinate about 400 people. The last I heard, there were still some appointments left for the 29th. I believe the 28th was booked solid. We had a OP amendment from Adelaide Metcalf on a wedding venue. And there's a fair amount of concerns about that. So that was also deferred until there was more reports come forward as far as noise concerns and impact on neighbors on that. there has been a crisis line created. It's 988. It's a suicide prevention and hotline, and it's county council is supporting that number. Again, it's 988. If anyone has needs for this to talk to somebody about that, it is available, and county council is supporting that. In closed session, there is just a union collective agreement that was signed, and that was done. And other than that, that's about it for yesterday. Thank you.
Thank you for that update. I'll turn to council then. Is there anything anyone wants to raise under other business? And I don't see anybody's hands, so we can move now to the bylaws. We have 4 tonight, so the motion is that bylaws 2021 number 51 through number 54 listed on the May 26, 2021 council agenda be adopted as printed. Could I have a mover please and a seconder? Councillor Cates and Councillor Shipley, thank you. And finally, the last motion before, Councillor Heffernan, I see you waving. Sorry, I missed you. You're on mute. I needed company. I can't be the only one.
Did you include bylaw 2, the second bylaw in that motion that was with the Omni one?
That's number 5 too? Yeah.
We don't want that.
Oh. Okay, so that's this one. So it's 13.2. We're not going to include that. Okay, so that's, yeah, that's good. So that'll be 2021-51 that we're moving, 2020-53, and 2021-54. We're excluding number 052. Okay, and it's okay, should we ask for another?
Yes.
Okay, so could we remove and second that? Thank you, Councillor Cates, and oops, that just jumped around. And Councillor Scott, thank you. Anyone opposed? Nope, so that is carried, thank you. And the final motion is that the Council for the Municipality of Middlesex Centre adjourns the May 26, 2021 meeting at 8:28 p.m. Looking for a mover and a seconder. Councillor Brennan and Councillor Heffernan. Anyone opposed? Okay, that is carried. Thank you everyone for your time tonight and your comments.